Deborah,
And I just forgot what I was just going
the
to tell you.
topic is where to be as a
Yeah,
podcaster, where to find your place in cyberspace. I often like to say that,
there
but
we
I have
go.
got comment on that not everyone knows what cyberspace is. And
That's
it could
funny
be,
because I think of that cyberspace. Yeah,
yeah, or interwebs, but it's a bit nerdy to say that. But
works for
I
me.
like the physical things. I like meetups, I like conferences, unconferences especially, and hopefully future conference like in London that
Mm-hmm.
Samset is arranging.
That's
That I
excellent.
think will be a milestone for the whole podcasting 2.0
You,
initiative.
you know why I forget what the topic is? There was something I sent you in the email, and I'm like, you can't say that. You can't. You know when you tell yourself
Yeah,
you can't say that, you can't say that, you can't say that. That's like the only thing in your mind. I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe it's good. I don't remember because it sounded derogatory. It's like whatever it was. But well, anyway, maybe it's good that I don't remember because it sounded derogatory.
yeah, but
But
to find your place in your space, you could say.
right, right.
And
Boy,
to
I'm
you gave some good examples there with your knowledge about this service that you're testing out as a musician, you could
right,
say.
right. Reverb Nation, and that one. As I was talking to some friends this week, and I won't name names because we haven't asked permission to mention it, and just in case, I don't want to do. There's one thing to do a shout out. It's another thing to mention a conversation that maybe they don't want reference. So we'll just say a friend, and you know the
Yeah.
friend. But anyway,
And you should know
the
that in here in Sweden, if I think I'm for freedom of expression, but now in Sweden have been so complicated. If you so-called quote somebody or mention somebody or shout out, it could be really dear consequences if you read by the letter, the law
mm-hmm.
and so on, because it is
Wow.
has something with how to say. I don't know the English word, but I mean you are responsible for the content, so to speak. And if
Right,
you
right.
quote
Wow.
somebody or mention somebody, I think it has to do with these European Union laws and so on,
Mm-hmm. So you really have
regulations.
to be careful on that one. Well,
Yep.
this friend, this mutual friend, and it's nothing negative that we're saying here, but it made me think of this. And I know we've been emailing, but the whole thing with musician, I'd spent a year at, and I'm number one right now as well. So I've been number one on Reverb Nation, and it's a website for musicians. I've been number one jazz singer in Los Angeles several times over. But this one I'm referencing when I was for a whole year. And when I say a whole year, I mean I checked every morning. That was before I even crawled out of bed, before my cup of coffee. I would just, pull out the iPad and check. It's like, oh wow,
I-
I'm number
Is
one.
it
Oh
like a
wow, I'm number
list
one.
every week, like back in the day with the top list of radio shows that they have?
Well, it's an ongoing
Yeah,
list. So it's not just the list, it's literally continual.
yeah.
And so I would check it every morning and I never dropped. And that was the
Wow.
thing is it almost got to a point where it was stressful where it's like, could I please go to number 2
Yeah.
so that I don't have to worry that I'm going to drop to number 2. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like you almost start worrying because you never drop. I mean,
Mm,
hey, don't get me wrong, I love being number 1, but
mm.
it's like you get that stress of when am I going to drop and not be
I
number 1.
thought
I
I thought
mean,
it was
that sounds
pretty
crazy.
interesting with this. Is it reverb, like that's a musician term, nation?
hmm
Who's behind it and who owns it? It seemed to be like a company from Asia that owns other uh,
Um,
outlets for musicians. So they have almost like an empire now in that regard.
they're very well known now. When I
Yeah.
started with them, oh goodness, when did I start with them? I think it was like in 2008. They were very small,
Mm.
but they're quite large now, and that's how you can get your album. Like for instance, you want your album to sell on Apple, you sign up with Reverb Nation, and it makes it really super easy because you
Okay. So
upload your music,
they
and then your
take.
music's available on Apple.
It's similar to that old. I know also a friend who's a musician here in Gothenburg, Sweden. He talks about this. What is called now? It's called CD Baby or something like that, and they have
Mm-hmm.
other outlets. And they started out with CD records, and now they are management and they are, helping musicians to join the different lists and whatnot. And then you have this Bandcamp. That's also a
Yep.
place.
Yep.
I,
That's also a place.
I
I
have a
can't remember
profile
all
there.
the. Yeah, Bandcamp has. I can't remember all the features. I used to keep up on all the different features, and sometimes they change and they have this, they have that, and then they
Yeah,
don't have this and they don't have that. I've pretty much stayed with Reverb Nation because I've been very happy with them,
yeah,
and that almost would be another episode
Yeah.
all in and of itself as far as comparing. Just like with podcasting, you have
Yeah.
I use let's see, I've got Libsyn. I
Yeah.
think you had at least you used Libsyn at one time. You've
Yes.
got Captivate. You've got
Captivate.
all these different podcast hosts.
Podhome.fm.
Right, right. And there's different features that they
Yep.
offer. They all offer podcast
And
hosting.
do you know
Some
what's
have whoops.
yeah,
Sorry.
the thing for the day that Sam Sett is doing? He now
Mhm.
will have a list how it to list the ones that have these podcasting 2.0 features,
Mhm.
and also to
Mhm.
help if you want to switch. So now it will be really friendly competition to
That'll be
really
really good.
push in a positive way if you are in it for the long run, because
Mhm.
in a way I could understand the hosting companies also, because if you want to add all these new feature, how will that affect your business and your servers and whatnot? Will you having a return on investment on this? But end of the day, I think in the future it will be, if you are not having some of these features at all, then you will be a legacy hosting company that
Right.
are like on the bottom, so to speak. But you could be happy with that also. It's all good. But what
But
I
there's
say here publicly, if that's okay, Deborah, is that you should the songs and tunes that you own, you
mhm.
should add them to truefans.fm,
Right.
because there you could get some recognition and some satoshis and some super comments, and
Mhm.
also the listener could become a super fan. I've become a super fan of one song, one tune by Door. They have a special name. It's a family name,
Mhm.
musicians in America. So it's one song that I've listened to, and now
Well,
I am in this
that's a
super
shout out to
fans
Sam.
chart. What's
Then, as
that?
far as like how do we do this? Because that was one of the things I wanted to know is how do I set up as far as artists and to be able to do that. So that's something definitely that would be helpful to artists to be able to do that. But there's only a limited number of hours per
Yep.
day, which is why we have this podcast. You know, I used to think 20 years ago, hey, you got to go out there and be everywhere as a
Mm.
musician, but you can't. You can't be go out there and claim your profile, but you can't be everywhere as a podcaster or musician or a shoe salesman or whatever. I'm not knocking shoe
Yep.
salesman. I mean, whatever you're doing, you can't be everywhere, and that's where this episode is all about. You need to know where you need to be,
Yep.
whether you're a podcaster, a musician, whatever you are, and that's where that conversation with our mutual friend, it
Yep.
was like she was talking about another friend of hers and a musician. It's like, hey, it's great that you're on YouTube, but YouTube really and truly, I don't mean to knock YouTube. I love YouTube, but
Yep.
YouTube is really a free video site. It's great for marketing but it's not going to make it or break it as a musician. And I can say that as a number one jazz singer in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Reverb Nation is where you need to be as a musician or something like Reverb Nation.
Mm.
YouTube's not going to necessarily. Now, there may be exceptions. There's always exceptions to rules.
Yep.
But if you're a musician, and I'm not getting paid, by the way, to do this. I might be an
Mhm.
affiliate. I don't know. Whatever. But I'm not getting paid to say this. So I'm just saying this. Musician, go to Reverb Nation. Now, Martin, as a podcaster, where do you need to be?
Yeah, in listing in where you want to be, like I would say, where all of the podcasts where you could find them. But then you
Mm-hmm.
could pick and choose if you maybe don't want to support some of the legacy places that are in a way maybe not for you. They are using you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that you decide yourself.
Right,
But I
right.
think to go to now with like true fans, if you claim your podcast there, it's very easy. If you go to Podcast Index, of course, back in the day, so to speak, it was a must in a way to
Mm-hmm.
be to Apple Podcast Connect. I don't know what it was called before. Maybe it was called iTunes. They don't want you to call it iTunes anymore.
Now it's Apple Music
Yeah, even if a
or
web
Apple.
web domain is sometimes iTunes, but that's another thing. So, but then here in Sweden, I've seen many things. Oh, I am on Spotify, and they are only on Spotify or Acast or whatever because it's Swedish companies from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and they don't really get it. That okay, and often, but it's up then to you as a podcaster or listener or supporter to direct them to other places. And
Right,
that's what I
right.
like, for example, at Captivate. Also, Libsyn, they have good distribution where you could distribute your things. And then, as you have done very great work, you have added manually and having your
Mm-hmm.
checking list and so on, and also creating your list. So I would say in the future, in the near future, go to that list that you are creating and check
And
where you
it will
are.
be on our website. I'm still
Yeah.
working on that, guys. Thanks for your patience, but you can
But
find
then you could
that.
also listen. You could see on the stats and analytics where you are,
Mm-hmm.
depending on language, listeners, and whatnot. So, but I would say then again, as Todd Cochran, and you are also supporter of that. I mean, have your own domain name,
Right,
your
right.
own place.
You don't want to know
Yes.
how many domains. You don't want to
Yeah.
know, Martin, how many domains I have.
No, and yeah. So, but so I think that's a thing that, and that's also both a good thing, but also a challenge. It's so many
Mm-hmm.
places, and still, but I think true fans again will be that one place to go. It will be the. It's funny how everything goes around. It's almost like what was that called for musicians that an artist bought that service. It's still around, but it's not popular.
The which service?
Yeah, it was a service that was every band had their place there.
Not Oh my goodness.
Not Friendster or not, but you will come up with the name. It's still around there. It
Not
was an artist.
MySpace.
What's that?
Not MySpace.
Yes, MySpace.
Because that was Michael and I were just talking
It's
about
still
that the other
around, but
day. Where we come
it's
home and we compete musician wise, and
yeah.
certainly compete against each other. I mean, all in all, I am not used to this microphone being here. Sorry, guys. All in good fun. We were just at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's like, oh, who can be number one
But
today, and it was really fun.
but you have to develop them because
Mm-hmm.
the design and layout was at the
Yep.
beginning you could have
Yep.
okay, it's new, but
Yep.
10 years later if it's still looking the same,
Right.
you could
Yeah, you're
wonder
right. I
about
think
it.
it does still exist, but it lost all
Yeah.
the fun element because
Yeah.
after work, I used to go compete against other. We'd challenge each other different songs. We were doing a Reba McEntire thing in country the last time when it actually like crashed and burned and MySpace didn't exist, but it was
Yeah.
a lot of fun
Yeah,
to
and
go
I
musician to
think
musician. Yeah.
True Fans.fm will do that in future. So
Mm-hmm.
you have your own place as an artist, and then you could decide when you come to the site for the first time what they will show. Is it the merchandise site, or is it booking tickets, or is it the latest song, or is it the latest episode, or gamification, some chart or list. So
And I think you
this
have to
will be
ask
your own
yourself.
site, and even you could have then connected with the domain name also. I think that's he has that plan. So Sam has so
Exactly.
many things going
Exactly.
on.
I think you have to ask yourself too what the benefit is. Like for example, I think I was number 4 as
Mm.
far as on the charts for my music, and all this stuff I've been doing on TikTok, and I'm doing it as a singer. That's my brand.
Yep.
And this is why I'm doing the blue hair here is because the blue hair actually acts as a business card. It's like,
Yep.
wait a minute, we know Deb, but we don't normally see her in blue
Like
hair. What is that? So it's
it's
like
your own persona now. You have the
yeah,
blue
it
hair.
acts
Yeah.
as kind of a business card without me breaking any rules and saying go
Yeah.
find me here. I won't go all into that, but it does act as like a business card. So they're like, wait, where have we seen that? And then they start finding me on TikTok, and I
Mm.
think that might have contributed to why I went from number 4 to number 1 just in the
Mm.
last week on Reverb Nation because now
Yeah.
people are listening to the music, and I did not go on TikTok live and say, hey, go find me on Reverb Nation. I didn't do that, but
No.
my stats went up. But see,
Yeah.
when I was talking to my friend about like YouTube and stuff, all I heard was, hey, she's got 6,000 people that follow her on YouTube. That's great. Wonderful. Yay. Yay. But what's it doing for you? It's like,
Yeah.
what have you
Very.
done for me lately? The Janet Jackson song. What's that doing? Are you
Yeah,
selling
and
songs?
that's why I personally don't spend lots of time on YouTube. I am happy to
Mm-hmm.
that my live streams when I'm doing that is saved at YouTube, but I want to save on other places in the future, especially with topics with freedom of expression. So I know that it will be safe.
Right, right.
Uh, but but I am thinking about shorts. I'm thinking about, but then it's how much should I spend on that, and do I have
Time
any
and
chance
money.
at all?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't think so. And now with when YouTube is claiming that billions of billions listening of podcast on YouTube, it's not matching up.
Right. I
I mean,
don't
it's
see
not
that. No
they
offense.
because they call they mix and match everything and call it podcast. If you write like if we have like this, it's not a podcast episode yet, but it's streaming. But
Right.
if we
Right.
mention it, it will be
It's
labeled as a
a
podcast.
YouTube
Yeah, yeah.
podcast. That
So,
was people
but you
can't
have
hear
done it
this. Air
very well
quotes.
also there. You have done it in the correct way. So Studio Fusion will be found on YouTube in the correct way also, like a nice list, playing list and so on.
Yep.
It's all
Yep.
good because then
Because
they
it
could find
is.
to studiofusion.co or the
Right.
social network. That's the whole thing. And the TikTok that you mentioned, I think you could have at least one link. I am not active, but I have an account.
Mm-hmm.
So there I have like teaparty.media or something like that. I don't remember right now, or if it's YouTube or something. So they could find you.
Right. And I do have it linked.
Yeah.
There's like a spot for 3 links. And by the
Okay.
way, if anyone's trying it, like my coaches for Gravitas Q, yes, I did put a little Gravitas Q, yay, whatever.
Yeah.
They said go put your Instagram on TikTok, and that doesn't work. So if anyone, just a side, completely off topic, sorry,
Yeah.
Martin, but if anyone's trying to connect their Instagram for whatever reason, that's not working in TikTok right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can connect your YouTube and Lemon8 and Instagram and a website. So yes, you're correct. You can connect that
So then
on
they
TikTok.
could find you in that way, and
Yep.
that's good.
Yep. Yep.
So
So
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you could be on every places, but in a way you can't.
and
Then it could
right.
be that we have friends that are very good at claiming. I mean, I know that it was services for that back in the day that you could pay to
Mm-hmm.
get your domain, your username on all the places in
Yep.
order to protect them. So
Yep.
nobody else would use it. Like we have seen now on Twitter, people using and then maybe even buy the check mark, and that's not the
Mm-hmm.
real person. And
Right.
I don't know how much they control that.
You
So
know. You know
I,
what I
I
found?
really what do you say?
You know what I found? I found somebody using, and I thought that I'd already registered it, but I admit I failed on this area. But TikTok.com/she said records, which is my husband's brand. That's
Yeah,
his company.
yeah.
And okay, so I didn't register that in time, but they actually put in their profile that they have seasiderecords.com. I was
Yeah.
like, you have got to be kidding. We've had this company since like 1999.
Yeah.
We've had the domain like since 1999. I could not believe that on their profile
Mm.
they claimed our domain.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy because if you
Yeah.
go to the website, it's our website. Is that crazy or what?
That's really strange.
Yeah, so I actually contacted TikTok and I reported them for impersonating us.
But there back in that day, it was when Bing had this. They had a Twitter score, depending on
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh, I
searches.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah, but this is on TikTok, and they just opened this account a couple days ago. So yeah, I actually reported them to TikTok, and I said they are impersonating us because they are claiming the domain that we've had for over 25 years.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. But hey, our action step for today is people should figure out their goal. I was thinking about this, Martin, when you were talking. You got to figure out what you want for your goal, whether you're a musician, podcaster, or as I said, shoe salesman. What do you want? Do you want to make money? Do you want popularity? Actually, if you go for popularity, I think it's going to be not as satisfying. That's just my thought. Popularity is fleeting, but
Mm.
but do you want to eventually make money doing this? Do you want to gather fans? That's in that popularity one. What is your goal? And whatever your goal is, make a plan for that. So in whatever you're doing, maybe you need to actually beef up whatever those profiles are, and make sure your whatever profile or whatever online, like you said, cyberspace, that it
Yep.
fits that goal.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to find a coach to
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's also what Adam Curry is talking about, these hyper local podcasts. So he thinks they have now that will be mentioned on Pod News. They will have an interview there with Adam and Dave about the project that they are doing, and connecting people, podcasts in a certain, you could say, belief system.
Right.
And then also radio stations. So when I
That makes
was
sense.
thinking that don't have that belief system in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but believe in something else, you could say,
Right.
that I see an opportunity here. And that's what Adam has said very openly. you could find your niche. And that's the circle is going around again. When in 2006, when I started, a guy called Prodos in Australia had that idea to have individuals who are interested in specific philosophy to join together and start called Solid Vox, internet radio podcast
Mm-hmm.
network, and then getting guiding and coaching by him and listen to each other and spread the good word.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think for the podcast app developers, don't if you especially if you put podcasting 2.0, you can't be everything for everyone.
Right.
Find your
Exactly.
niche. Like Fountain is
Exactly.
very much into Noster and cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and this kind of thing. So they have attracted lots of podcasts and lists on that. So you get these, you find new things in that way. I know that Sam has ideas about that also. When you're
Yep.
active and join and claim your podcast and get this, this podcast seems interesting, and my friend is listening to that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And another app could be, okay, we want to be on this side of a political spectrum or on this area in this field or whatever. So this networking thing, and that like Captivate, for example, have that feature. If you have several podcasts connected, you could have your own podcast network. That costed a lot of money in the past. Now you could
Now
use
it's a
that
part
service.
of right. Right.
Yeah,
I'm working on that with this whole Seaside Records as far as connecting them. So yeah, that's a great podcast topic. We should put that on our
yeah, because
list.
then you could add them, for example, on the pod roll,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
like the
Exactly.
blog roll, and then people
I
could,
gotta,
be found, and then
I gotta
in
add
a
that
positive
to.
way.
I gotta go add these on our
It's
list of
almost like
topics.
back in the day. Do you know the internet when the internet stopped when you got to end of a road? Like you had these website rings. You
Mm-hmm.
clicked on a
Oh, yes, yes.
like
Oh my
chili
goodness. That's
pepper
yep,
heads or
yep.
we who like this and that music, and then you clicked on the arrow,
Oh, I remember that.
and
Wow.
all these blogs and websites were connected together.
Yep, I do
But
remember
then
that.
after some time it was end or error or you have,
Yep,
but it was
yep,
fun.
yep. Okay, guys. So you
Yep.
all have a task for this next week is to find your objective
Yep.
and start making your lists that fit that objective. Whether that's finding a coach or defining where you need to be in order, and that's like in cyberspace, to quote Barton, as far as what website, where do you need to be to help promote that objective. And as always, you can come visit us on studiofusion.club to articulate that goal or flesh it out or ask for advice or just simply to acknowledge that you are taking that action step so that we can give you points because we've gamified this. So, and you can find us studiofusion.co for past episodes or to chat with us at studiofusion.club. Martin, anything to add?
Again, but that could be continuous. I think this hyperlocal and also physical, that you could find your place there also.
Good point. Good point.
So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Studio Fusion, and we will see you same place, same time next week. Right, Martin?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
I need more sleep. I just